Good afternoon and welcome to our May Headliners Luncheon. My name is Tara Polton. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Workforce Partnerships with the Manatee Chamber, and I am thrilled to have you all here. So we are thrilled to have this strong attendance today for a topic that continues to be at the center of a lot of dialogue, attainable housing. But first, I'm going to ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm hoping we can get the music turned down as well. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I'd now like our elected officials to please stand and be recognized as I call their name. If you could, please hold your applause until the very end. Manatee County. We have registered, I don't know if I've seen him yet, but Chairman is Kevin Van Ostenbridge. I don't see quite yet. I certainly know that Commissioner George Cruz is here. George is on our panel. Thank you so much for that. And Commissioner Amanda Ballard should be coming as well. And from the city of Bradenton, Mayor Jean Brown, another panelist, Vice Mayor Jane Coker, Councilwoman Mary Ann Barnaby, Pam Coachman, Lisa Gonzalez-Moore, and Councilman Josh Kramer. Thank you for your service and commitment to this community for such a wonderful place for all of us to live, work, and play. If I could please recognize our headliner sponsors right up front. We have the Realtors Association of Sarasota and Manatee, as well as Florida Power and Light, Manatee Memorial, and the Mosaic Company. A big thank you to our platinum investors, Brown & Sons Funeral Homes and Crematory, Carr, Rings & Ingram, the City of Bradenton, IMG Academy, Manatee County Government, Manatee Memorial Hospital, MCR Health and All Care Options, the Mosaic Company, NDC Commercial Real Estate, NDC Construction Company, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Bradenton Marauders Baseball, Raymond James Wealth Management and Bruce Body, the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, Seaport Manatee, and South State Bank. So whether you call it attainable housing, workforce housing, or affordable housing, we all know that our region is struggling with the difficulties that a lack of diversity-priced housing stock is creating. Now, that lack of attainably priced housing affects members of our community at many levels of the income scale. And employers are feeling the effects as well as they struggle to attract and retain talent in an ultra-tight labor market. We also know that this problem, it's not new, right? And neither are the forces that have created these challenges. But the incredible influx of new residents into Florida, and real estate investors too, have intensified this housing challenge by creating this incredible demand. The cat's out of the bag, so to speak, right? Everybody knows that we have the slice of paradise, and people all around, all over the country, want to call the Suncoast home. So should the solutions come solely from the private sector, or maybe the public sector, or are public-private partnerships and collaborations most likely to make the most progress on this issue? So we have convened a panel of leaders who are each approaching this issue from their unique spheres of influence and expertise. And I know you join me in looking forward to hearing their thoughts and ideas today. Now, at first, we're going to take a break. We're going to let Palm Air come serve lunch for you. When we return, Ben Bacher, Senior Commercial Advisor and Partner at NDC Commercial Real Estate, will be back up here at the podium. He'll be introducing our panelists, and he will be formally introducing them. Ben has served as a passionate advocate for affordable and attainable housing in Manatee County for more than a decade. He has served as a member of the City of Bradenton's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, as well as the Chamber's Attainable Housing Task Force. He's also hosted workshops with local industry leaders on these issues during his time as chairman of the Manatee Young Professionals. Even more recently, Ben has served and worked side by side with Miami-based attainable housing developer Housing Trust Group to successfully work with government agencies to broker and develop 2 affordable housing projects in the city of Bradenton, the Addison Apartments Complex and Riverview 6. Ben was also, he's quite the rock star, and I told him this, Ben was also named 2014's People to Watch by Biz 941, and boy was he. He was also awarded a Medal of Honor as a Magnetic Man of Manatee County for his distinguished citizenship, and if that's not all, Ben was also recognized as the Business Observer's 40 Under 40 in 2015. Enjoy your lunch, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here this afternoon, and thank you all for the privilege of being your facilitator today and the opportunity to be part of discussing such an important issue to our region. It's no surprise that the Sunshine State has always been in high demand, but that attractiveness of living in our area has dramatically increased in the last 3 years. It's also no surprise that our entire country has been grappling with an affordability issue in housing for quite some time as well. Unfortunately, the recent Florida population boom, paired with lingering supply chain issues and capped off with a dramatic spike of inflation, has elevated our housing affordability issue into a full-blown crisis. Fortunately, our state legislature has taken this issue seriously and has gotten to work on being part of the solution. This past March, I had the privilege of meeting with our legislators Will Robinson, James Buchanan, and Tommy Gregory to help push for support on housing reform. And I'm happy to report that my colleagues and I were able to celebrate the passage of the SB 102 Live Local Act while at the state capitol that week, which is the most comprehensive housing affordability reform package to come out of the Capitol in decades. For those not fully familiar, in a very brief summary, here are the most important points on that bill. Up to $811 million in total programming funding, including $252 million to the SHIP program, $259 million to the SAIL program, and $100 million for the expanded Hometown Heroes program. An increase in community contribution tax credit programs designed to encourage businesses to make contributions towards development and housing for low-income Floridians. Encouraging private sector investment of affordable housing with a Live Local corporate tax donation, and providing gap financing to workforce housing programs already underway that may be experiencing material costs and supply chain hardships. Also, 3 new property tax exemptions. First, for owners who dedicate units for households earning 60% of AMI or less. Second, for land owned by a nonprofit which is leased for at least 99 years to affordable housing uses. And third, a missing middle exemption that applies newer developments setting aside a portion of their units for affordable housing. Also, a loosening of the reins on density, height, and zoning restrictions. And finally, encouraging the use of public property for housing, additionally allowing for expedited development purposes. These and many other things in that bill were pushing the needle forward and helping to address Florida's affordable housing crisis. And while this certainly doesn't solve our issue, it's a huge step forward in progress. And today, we will discuss the impacts of this legislature on our area, both in the circles of city and county government, as well as its effect on private enterprise and the nonprofit sector. I'm joined today by some of the most prominent voices in this arena, and today we will hear from them on this important issue. I'll begin by letting each of them give you a brief update from inside their own circles, followed by a short list of pre-selected questions that we have prepared for them. From there, we will turn the microphone to all of you to allow for your questions. So without further ado, I will introduce you to our first panelist, County Commissioner George Cruz. George Cruz has called the Manatee County area home since 2008, a graduate of Carl Mooney High School in '93. George went on to receive degrees in both management and finance from UF and subsequently received his MBA in real estate from Columbia Business School in 2003. George has made a lifelong career in commercial real estate finance, starting when he accepted a position with the Affordable Housing Equity Fund at Raymond James. which began his passion for both finance and studying ways to generate attainable housing for communities. This has led to positions on the City of Bradenton's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, where we got to serve together. It was a lot of fun. And numerous speaking engagements throughout the country. Upon graduating from Leadership Manatee in 2019, George decided to utilize his unique background and skill sets to improve Manatee County for its current and future residents. He has taken numerous roles throughout the community, including being a board member for the Sarasota Manatee Columbia Alumni Club, Manatee Tiger Bay, and the Leadership Manatee Alumni Association. He's active with the Bradenton Kiwanis, the Chamber of Commerce, Junior Achievement, and various community and educational activities throughout the year. In his spare time, George is an avid runner and triathlon participant.
Yeah, Manatee County is making some great strides in housing, but we have a long way to go. The SB 102, which is something we'll talk about, I think it was one of the questions, is going to be a real catalyst to moving us forward. But what we've done in the past 12, 24, 36 months have been dramatic if you're in the housing industry, but it's honestly a small little sliver. I mean, Manatee County, if you look at the Alice report, it's a report that shows where people are rent burdened and having issues with affording housing. It says that 31% of our households are qualified as Alice. That's about 50,000 households. That doesn't mean we need 50,000 more affordable units. That's things trickle down. But we're probably a good 30,000 units short. And that's not something you can snap your fingers and fix. Well, like I was telling them, even if I can just build one unit affordable, that's everything to that one family that moves into that unit. So we just need to keep doing what we can do every single step of the way, using every opportunity we have. So if you look at what Manatee's done in the past couple of years, we've encouraged smaller units, which even if they're not affordable from a quote unquote capital A affordable housing, they're cheaper just because you're renting less units. We've encouraged less parking ratios. We've encouraged gap financing, less setbacks, higher density. We've been doing a lot to move housing forward. And most of what we've done without tax dollars. We fundamentally believed, and I fundamentally believe, that removing the regulations, removing the restrictions of developers is the best way to encourage housing, because that doesn't cost the taxpayers money, but air is free, setbacks are free, parking is excessive as it is. I truly believe minimum parking ratios should be 0. And that's what encourages people. You also need to give people the comfort and the confidence that they can build what they want to build, because that gets things done faster and gets things done quicker or cheaper. And that's where SB 102 comes in, and we'll talk about it. And you mentioned the dollars, and the dollars are great, but only so much that's going to come down to Manatee County. The bigger, more impactful side of SB 102 is going to be the regulations and opportunities we have as a board to discuss. It's the removal of real estate taxes, we'll talk about that. It's the incentives and opportunities to build on commercial and mixed-use properties, especially this Chamber of Commerce event. You know, we have a lot of employers here that are having a hard time bringing employees in because they can't afford to live here. SB 102 is going to alleviate a lot of that problem, and that's something I hope one of our questions we could talk about, because those are going to be the two biggest things in my mind, not the dollars, because once you spend the dollars, they're gone. It's the long-term benefits that we can put into our comp plan and our land development code that's truly going to make a difference and really start propelling us forward with housing in Manatee County.
Thank you, Commissioner Cruz. Our second panelist is Mayor Gene Brown. Gene Brown became mayor of the city of Bradenton in January of 2021. Formerly, he served 3 terms on the Bradenton City Council as Ward 2 councilman before deciding to run for mayor. Mayor Brown brings a unique perspective to the mayor's office as vice president and CEO of Brown & Sons Funeral Homes and Crematory, where he has served Bradenton since 1989. He understands firsthand the needs of the business community. He is also active in service to the community and has an extensive history with the Boys and Girls Clubs and the Manatee County Sheriff's Advisory Committee. He prepared for his career at Gupton Jones College of Funeral Service in Atlanta, Georgia, where he earned an AS degree in 1989. A graduate of Bayshore High School, he also attended Mars Hill College and Manatee Community College, where he earned an associate's degree. Mr. Brown has been married to Gina for over 30 years. They have 2 adult children and 3 grandchildren. Mayor Brown?
Thank you, Ben. And obviously, the person to my left and the person to my right all started their process in the city of Bradenton on the boards they served on with that. So we're proud that that's going on. But one of the things that I think that we've seen in our city is obviously we're landlocked. We've got 14.4 square miles. We don't have the vast space that the county has. So to us, it's about what we can do kind of in our urban core and some things that will help develop our downtown. And affordable housing is very important to that because we want it to be live, work, and play. So obviously, we don't want it to be all the people that can afford to live downtown but can't afford to work downtown. There's got to be where you can get the workers that are going to be there also. So affordable housing is important. And so far, since 2019, the city of Bradenton has actually put in, or is putting in, 743 workforce for attainable housing. 3 projects are finished, which, HGG was talking about a little bit with Mr. Rocker there, that have gone through it. So those projects are going. The 3 projects that are going now, though, actually with your 4th one, actually did start. The county has been involved in 2 of our projects that have built, Riverview 6, and then just down on Knight, farther down on the right, the other project ran into the financial problems, and that's what we've talked about quite a bit, where, they were starting the projects and all of a sudden the supply chain and everything had changed. And we're fortunate in the city to have the county be able to work with them and give them that over the top part of it, and it shows the collaborations that we're working with. And one of the things that we need to continue to do, though, is work through and with zoning and codes and that to kind of mirror the county, so it can make it easier for our developers to continue to work. But the city of Bradenton, so far, with those 743 units, has done a good job, but it's not near what we need to continue to do. I believe with this, the bill that just passed and the things that we're going to be able to do, continue to work on that and work on density and smaller units will be a great thing for our city, while helping those police officers, those nurses, the beginning firefighters, that will be able to be in a place where they can still have an affordable place but still live within their means. So we're looking forward to the discussion here and continuing the collaboration with all of us in this room, as well as thinking outside the box a little more what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Our 3rd panelist is Mark Vengroff. Mark is managing partner of One Stop Housing and chairman of One Stop Cares. Mark Vengroff joined One Stop Housing as its manager partner in 2018. He continues to build on his father's legacy of providing clean, safe, affordable housing for working families for over 40 years. In Mark's first 5 years, the company doubled in size with over 4,000 rental units across the state of Florida and Tennessee. They include 8 converted hotels, several large multifamily apartment communities, and many various sized multi-unit apartments. OSH is one of the largest for-profit owner-operators of workforce housing in the state of Florida. In 2019, Mark acquired and rebranded a construction company now named One Stop Housing Development and Construction. They are licensed in Florida and Tennessee as general contractor, plumbing, and electrical contractors. The savings gained through their design, build, and construction renovations allows One Stop Housing to reduce its costs on new developments and continue to provide lower rents to working families. In 2020, Mark founded One Stop Cares, a 501c3 to provide the needed wraparound services to support the residents in the surrounding communities. Currently, Mark sits on the board for the Bradenton Economic Development Board, an appointed commissioner on the Sarasota Housing Authority, founder and co-chairman from the Florida Incubator, chairman of One Stop Cares, and managing partner of One Stop Housing and One Stop Housing and Development Construction.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm not the professional speaker as some of these other folks may be, but One Stop Housing, as was mentioned, was started by my father, Harvey Ventra. You either loved him or hated him, but he's a very kind person. Today we have about 800. Right now we have 800 all affordable units under construction. And when I say affordable, I mean workforce housing. We don't take tax credits. We're not subsidized. It's all a true old-fashioned for-profit business that we believe, real grit and sweat. We can still keep things affordable and just pay it forward. Just be smart in our construction design be smart in our operating, and try to keep our costs down and value engineer everything, to try to keep ahead of the trend. Some of the developments, what we're doing right now, we have Sarasota Station. It's, that's gonna be 400 units, everything will be between 70 and 80%, 70 to 90% of AMI. That's right there in the heart of downtown Sarasota. There'll be we're working on an Italy. I don't know if you're familiar with Italy, so it has some really cool amenities that will be part of the community. We're also working on School Road, a 44 unit, that'll be 80% or below. We're hoping to be able to make that available for the officers. So that'll be kind of cool to do. In Manatee County in particular, we have 182 units that we're working on, all 1 and 2 bedroom units. Everything is at 80% or below for AMI. And that'll be beautiful ground up. We're doing a lot of smaller projects too, where we have existing land and we're just leveraging those. Where we have 36 units going on Tamiami Trail, right by the airport, and another 16 which is completed. Those are around 70% of AMI. And we did try, in Orlando, we bought another hotel, we're converting, it's 150 units. We did that in partnership with the city of Orlando. We were asked to come in and they actually are a business partner on that. And that's an interesting story for us since it's kind of new. The thing I think I'm most excited about is through the Economic Development Board, through Sharon Hillstrom, has made a bunch of introductions to some of the larger businesses in the county here, where we're partnering with them to build an employer-based community. And it's allowing these employers to have a competitive advantage to retain and attract the best talent for them, to keep them in a housing, into a development or a community. Right now, we're currently sizing this about 400 apartments, a little less than 400 apartments, with amenity rich, with a daycare center, a telehealth center right on site, and shuttle services to and from work. I think that's going to be a real differentiator. And if that works out well, that could be the way that businesses can really put their money where their mouth is and really help the problem. It has to be a public-private partnership on something like that, because most people, we're a for-profit business with a very philanthropic mission that we're just carrying through from what my father had set out over 40 years ago. But not everyone's going to want to do that. So, having this private-public partnership, I think on developments like that are really going to help things out.
Thank you, Mr. Mandroff. Our fourth speaker is Bernie Quinn. Bernie brings his unique experience as a former pastor and nonprofit leader to Manatee County's Habitat for Humanity. Before joining their team, he served as the lead pastor of Grace Community Church in Rochester, New Hampshire, and as the donor development director for Habitat's Lee and Hendry County offices. Bernie has also served as the president of a homeless shelter and a hurricane relief charity, building homes for victims of natural disasters. He is a seasoned leader who is patient, detail-oriented, and a strong advocate for homelessness and poverty alleviation. His vast leadership experience and heart for the Habitat for Humanity mission served the organization well. In 2018, Bernie relocated to Southwest Florida from New Hampshire with his wife, Cece. They have been married for 34 years together and raised 3 children. He has a master's degree in psychology and continues to be active in church and charitable causes. In his free time, he loves both fishing and wildlife photography. Mr. Quinn.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Bernie Quinn, and President and CEO of the Habitat for Humanity here in Manatee County. Habitat for Humanity has a partnership housing model, and that is that they partner with future homeowners. The homeowners partner with Habitat to build their own house. So the homeowners put $300 of sweat equity into the houses that they purchase. One of the unique aspects of us, and grateful to be at the table today, is that we provide affordable home ownership. So these residents purchase the houses themselves from us for a 0% 30-year mortgage, and they own the homes. And they help build the homes themselves alongside of our volunteers. We've been in Manatee County since 1994, built about 145 homes, single-family homes in the county. Of those 145 homes, 65 of those residents have paid their mortgages in full. And so and now they're mortgage free. We are currently in a period of increasing our capacity. When I first came in as the CEO, we had a waiting list, and still do, of 58 families who have pre-qualified to purchase one of our homes. And we are fielding 80 to 90 calls or emails every month from residents in our county who are looking to buy a home from us. And so we have been purchasing land. We're closing on 6 homes this next 30 days. And one of those homes I'm is an example, is a 30-year-old mother of 4 children who is already widowed. Her husband has already passed away. She has 4 kids, raising them on her own. She's purchasing a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family house with us, and her mortgage payment, taxes, insurance, everything included, $850 a month, 30-year mortgage. Okay? And so we feel compelled to look for partners to help us to scale this model, because it is a model that's been proven and works. And we're purchasing land. We're breaking ground in a new development, 16-home development in June. Our first foundation will go in there. We purchased property in Palmetto. We're planning to build 28 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhomes on that property. And we have a tentative closing set in June for a 27-lot subdivision that we're buying. So we'll have about 78 home lots that we can build on, and we're hoping to build those out within the next 3 to 5 years if we can. And so that's what we're working on, and that's what we're excited about in the piece that we bring to the table. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. So Jackie and Taryn and I spent some time creating some pre-planned questions that we wanted to pose to the panel for discussion. Some group angled, some more individual angled, and then we'd like to turn it over to our audience as well. The first question I have is for all 4 of you. On this panel, we basically have 4 silos. We have 4 different lenses to look at this. The first through the county government, second through the city of Bradenton, the third through private enterprise, and the 4th through the nonprofit and ownership sectors. So I'd like to ask all 4 of you, what is the most important thing that your organization is working on to address attainable housing in our area? We'll start with Commissioner Cruz and go down the line.
Well, the county is working on, I mean, we're, as the mayor said, we're a lot broader than the city of Bradenton. They're very concentrated. So we have a unique situation where we have all different silos we need to focus on simultaneously. We can't ignore anybody. We have Commissioner Ballard here. She's working with the homeless and homeless families, and we have some great opportunities we're looking at there. We're working on housing for veterans. We're working on family affordable and attainable housing. And right now, one of the biggest things we need to focus on is on senior attainable and workforce housing, because their fixed incomes aren't rising with the wage increases. So you're starting to see a graying of the homeless. It's an underserved market. We do have some. Lincoln Capital is building a senior housing project right now down in Oneiko, and Dominium just opened up a senior housing project up by the convention center, but we certainly have a shortfall. So we have to look at everything from a broad standpoint. So what we're doing as a county is just trying to make every option available to everybody to do everything at once, because there's no other way to handle this. We're so far behind, and everyone's far behind, because when the last downturn hit back in 07, 08, all the way through, you basically had a 5-year involuntary moratorium on development, which put everything from market rate to affordable way behind. And it's virtually impossible to catch up. But as I said earlier, every roof we can put over someone's head is 100% important to that one person, that one family. So we're trying to do everything we can. And a lot of it is working with our development group and with Courtney and her team and Rowena, and figuring out what regulations do we have, what's stymieing this development, and how do we remove that barrier. That's what we've done with parking, that's what we've done with setbacks, that's what we've done with height and density. We started realizing everyone was building to 120% AMI, so we were ignoring that real missing middle, that kind of 80% threshold. So we took a step back and said, hey, we're going to expand Livable Manatee. We did this last year, in fact, when Hope Village came in front of us, because Livable Manatee used to cap at $500,000 per project. My logic was, if someone's building more units affordable, why are we not giving them the same benefits for those additional units? We should be crediting them for building us more affordable units. So we expanded it to make that unlimited in size to pay for their impact fees. But the concession of that was we want it affordable for a longer period of time, and we want it at 80% if you're going to use our money. Everyone started building 80%. It achieved its goal. That's the kind of stuff we're trying to do in the county is try to hit everything as best we can by just removing the barriers. You'll start seeing that with SB 102. You'll start seeing that further with this board because the board's steering a little away from the dollar incentive side and more towards regulation side. So you're going to start seeing more conversations on this board about parking ratios and unit sizes and tiny homes and structuring where we can set up zoning to allow for clustered smaller homes. So I think you're going to see some creative ideas. Everyone on the board's been working and looking around the state, looking around the country to figure out what's best practices elsewhere and how can we incorporate that into Manatee County for our developers, both for-profit and nonprofit and the national attainable workforce housing groups. And we're starting to see some success, and I think you're going to see more of that coming forward in Manatee County.
Thank you, and I think that's a very important question because when you look at, as we talk about the county being the vast part of it, the city being the urban core and the development we can do there, one of the things that you see in our city more is homeless and people that need the transitional housing to get into that affordable housing. And it's more concentrated in the city because that's where the services are. So one thing that we've been working on, again, with our partners, and we had a Council of Governments meeting the other day that I thought really started it off well. And we talked about that at our council meeting this morning, that's the first, probably in my 10 years, that's the best Council of Governments meeting we had that I've been around, because it actually started to address as partners what we can do and how we can, it's not about kicking the homeless out of the city or the county, it's about finding what they need. And, the first step is attainable housing so they can get into it. They may need a little transitional to begin with, but then where do they go? And how do we then give people an opportunity to succeed? We're fortunate in the city for a number of more years. We have our Community Redevelopment Agency that has some of that funding that can help with that and, finding places. But again, it's going to be about collaboration and working with the county partners to continue to grow what we can do for our small part. We still may have availability to give some funding to help. We also have some impact fee credits, different things to incentivize some of the developers that are doing things now. But I think it's going to be important to keep collaborating, but continue to try to find that outside the box thing that we come up with and just really see how we can help the group of people that needs it and move to the next thing. One other thing that we're working that will probably come up pretty soon, I like the home ownership model. How do we get, because if they own it, they may take better care of it. We have an opportunity in the city of one of our areas that we can do some home ownership in an economic depressed area that will hopefully change that and get the people that can't afford to buy a home, then we'll open up other areas for them. So that's to be determined, but that's coming, and I think it's something that, really could change the dynamics in the smaller part of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Mr. Van Gogh?
Yeah, I think aside from we have 800 units, all workforce housing that's under development today that we are doing as an owner-manager. We've been asked by a number of different organizations, nonprofits, a couple in particular, where they're getting these bids coming in from general contractors that they're just through the roof. And they're getting grants that'll give them a certain level. And one example, a Zebra. I don't know if there's Zebra Coalition. They help abused teens, and they had $2 million given to them in a grant. They wanted to do this building. We looked at that, and their quotes that they were getting were like $3.5 to $4 million, and they only had 2. We looked at it, and we could build it for 1.9 to 2.2, depending on what kind of they wanted to do with it. And we're not doing anything special. I just think there's a lot of greed, and that's kind of taken over. And so we're doing what we can on that front to help build these housing for for other organizations. And then we're being a part of the Sarasota Housing Authority, which takes tax credits, and it's more true affordable housing outside of what we're doing, where they're taking Section 8 and so forth. But they're building, we noticed that, they're spending probably more money than they need to on the building so they can build more with less money. And so we're kind of bringing some of our best practices into helping them to re-engineer or value engineer some of the construction that they're doing so that they can, get a little more with their dollar.
Thank you, Mr. Van Groff. Mr. Quinn?
So we are compelled by the great need that is before us in our community. Like I said, we have 58 families right now on a pre-qualified waiting list for a home, and we're fielding 80 to 90 calls a month inquiring on how to buy a Habitat house. These families we serve between 50 and 80% of AMI, and many of them are very hardworking families that are having a hard time finding decent, safe housing for their families. And so when we do our intakes with these families and we meet them for the first time, the stories are heart-wrenching. Their children are sharing 2-3 children to a room. The landlords have allowed the places to become, downtrodden. They've got roaches, there's mold, there's crime in the area. They want desperately out with their children. And they see this as one of the only ways to be able to get out of that because of their income levels and because of the high cost of housing. Even affordable rent that's, for them is not affordable, this homeownership model is really the only path that they have. And so, recently as we looked at the cost of, the average cost of a house now in Manatee County is somewhere in like $491,000. That's the average cost of a house. If you do a 10% down payment on that house, you got to come up with $49,000 for a 10% down payment. And with no HOA at our current interest rates, your mortgage payment for 30 years will be $3,700 a month. Now, the area's median income, $90,400, if you take that number and you do that backwards and you say, well, what could that person afford for a home? 30% of their income is about $2,200 a month. If they're going to buy a house for their first home, even if they can come up with $10,000 down payment, which is very difficult for many of those families, then they have to shop for a house in the price range of $290,000. If you've shopped for a house recently or paid attention, I think you will understand that that's not a very promising housing market in the $290,000 range, right? So with us, our last house that we just sold, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, appraised for $290,000. Brand new, metal roof, spray foam insulated, hurricane windows, super energy efficient, and their mortgage, again, as I said, was $850 a month for taxes, insurance, and everything included. So this is what drives us, the families, that this is affordable housing for them. And it helps them build equity, and it helps them to rise out of poverty long term. And I just will say one other thing is that, just a few weeks ago, I had a woman come in with her last check, her last payment on her mortgage. And when she handed it to Carrie, our CFO, and I, with tears in her eyes, she said, I just want you to know that because my mortgage was so low, her mortgage payment was about $650 a month because she bought it about 10 years ago. Because her mortgage was so low, she was able to help her 2 boys go to college. And one of them now is going on for his master's degree, and she has no mortgage, and she can help her son go to get his master's degree. And we had another woman who did the same thing and said now that her mortgage is paid for, she wants to go back to school for nursing, for her nursing degree. And so that's the thing that drives us and what we're after and what we're trying to scale, and why we're trying to build more of these and look for partners that will help us, whether it be corporate or government. This is a piece of this whole puzzle that we bring and we can do, and we can build it more to scale, and the need is enormous. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. You know, I had a few more questions, but all four panelists really, you addressed a lot of the ones that we're following, so thank you for that. I would rather spend the last 10 to 15 minutes here hearing from our membership and what questions you have for our panelists. So we do have a mic up front. If you'd like to step up and ask a question, we'll adopt the Tiger Bay rules today, basically stating that if you've got a question for our panelists, number one, we ask that you take no more than 1 minute to phrase your question. Number two, to reiterate, we want it to be in the form of a question and not a statement or not a soapbox or anything like that. With that, we'll open up the floor to any questions. Unless we have now solved the affordable housing crisis in Manatee County, in which case your chamber membership was highly worth it. Mr. Heap.
Hey, good afternoon. Jed Heap, I'm a local architect. I was just curious if anyone had looked into land trusts as a way to get the value of land out of the cost of new homes. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe, Manatee County has been actively working on a community land trust. It's a great opportunity to get for sale homes to people. I mean, most of our focus, honestly, has been on the rental side because we need critical mass. It's easier to do rental when you're talking about density and height and so forth. But the community land trusts are great. And if anyone doesn't know, it won't take up too much time, so I'll give like a 30-second overview. It's essentially a way where a nonprofit can retain the ownership of the land, and then you're effectively just selling the home on top of it. A poor example, but at least an analogy you can understand, is if you think of a mobile home park where someone brings in their own home and they just rent a pad under it. So it's a similar process. It allows the end home to be sold much cheaper to the end buyer, and then they pay like $1 or whatever it is per year for the rent. The lease goes for 99 years on the land. It's a great opportunity. It's something Manatee County's been actively working on. The issue is not only getting it set up, but also having the land to do it. I believe we found a location north of the river to use as kind of a pilot case, and we've since signed on with the Florida Housing Corporation to help finalize that and plan that out with us to get that going. So I'm hopeful in the next 12 months, hopefully in the next 12 days, but soon we should be in a position to launch that. Once we have that structured and we have a manager for it, it doesn't have to be contiguous land. You can have scattered sites. So it'll allow us to work with people like Bernie and Habitat and other groups to add to a community land trust format here in Manatee County to expand what we currently have on the rental side into more home ownership above and beyond what Habitat and some other groups are doing a great job providing.
Mayor Brown.
Well, in the city of Bradenton, obviously, we don't have as much land as we'd like to use, but we do have some surplus lands that Mr. Perry is really starting to drill down on with some other staff members. And over the years that I've been there, we have sold basically at a very low amount for people to build some little communities of affordable housing. Unfortunately, by the time they got built, they were affordable, but they weren't as affordable as we had anticipated. So that's something that we're looking into with some of our surplus land that we can turn into maybe a little bit of affordable home ownership in some areas.
Good.
On the land trust issue, we're looking at some of those possibilities, but, you know, again, our model is one to help families rise out of long-term poverty. And, you know, part of home ownership is the value of your house goes up over time, and you pay off your mortgage over time, and you build equity, and that's how, you know, eventually that you build wealth in your family. And with the land trust, our part is that we'd be cautious about, and we'd have to do on our end, we'd want to do more research into, is, you know, you all, if you own a home, you know the house deteriorates in condition over time, but the land is what gives your house a lot of value over the long term, right? And so the part that I would be careful of for us is that we don't put homeowners into situations, as Commissioner mentioned, you know, sort of like a mobile home type park where it's a modular home on a piece of land that they don't own. And so it does fit a purpose. It does have a part for particularly the lower, you know, income, maybe closer to 50 or even below AMI. But for our part, we're carefully looking at the pros and cons of that. And that's one of our thoughts on it for right now. So.
If you want to come up to the mic, and actually, Mrs. Benak was just in front of you, so. Go right ahead.
Rock, paper, scissors. Is it viable to build apartment buildings as opposed to housing? In New York City, everything's up. I know there's a parking garage went up in Manatee, in downtown Bradenton, on Manatee Avenue. It was a storage facility. So a space like that, could that be an apartment building? Would it be cheaper to do that for affordable housing?
Thanks for your question.
Height is always cheaper. I mean, it's always better in the long run to focus vertically more than horizontally for two reasons. One, air's free. When I was up in New York, we used to sell air rights, and they were sold for a lot of money because you can go up. So I can offer people more height, more density, easier than I can offer more density if they have to buy it per acre, for a number of reasons. One, you see what's happening further and further out east, further and further up north. It's just going to continue sprawling out if we're capping ourselves at 1 and 2 stories. Whereas if we can get meaningful 10, 15, 20 stories, very selectively, I'm not saying turn us into Miami, but you can amortize the cost of the land and the construction over many more units, especially if you have smaller units. It's always the better way to go. You're also allowing for less footprint, which effectively creates more green space. It's environmentally better. We just need to put it into our code to allow for that. We do have some unique opportunities to circle back with SB 102 because now, and Mark kind of alluded to this, where he's working with some companies, you can build as of July 1st, once it's in the code, you can build as of right residential on all commercial and mixed use zoned property in the state of Florida. You don't have to come in front of the board. And it was kind of, I'm not going to say screwed up, but they didn't clarify it the year before in House Bill 1339. They just said you can do that, but they didn't say what you can do. This year they more defined it. You can build up to a height equal to the highest height allowable within a 1 mile radius of that site, and the maximum residential density of whatever the maximum residential density is in the entire municipality. As of right, on commercial and mixed use, you don't even come in front of a board for it. So it makes it cheaper, it makes it faster. A developer knows that they can come in and buy effectively more affordable land, build higher, build more density. It's going to be great for employers that are having a hard time keeping people here because they can't afford to live here. If you have employers like the Tropicanas, the Bells, the Amazons, you got these industrial parks that say, hey, I'm just going to use a portion of my land because the rest of it, as of right, I can build residential and bring these employees in. But that's going to take height. They're not going to be able to sprawl out and build 1 and 2 story duplexes and triplexes and things like that and make that economically feasible. So there are a lot of opportunities, but yes, height and density is always the way to go, to have smaller footprints closer to urban core. We have height restrictions all over the place right now. More when you get to the airport, you have a lot of height restrictions, but that's not us. We can't do any, and even with SB 102, we can't affect FAA regulations. But there are height restrictions right now. There's also density restrictions, so the density restrictions are going to tie it a little bit more. City of Bradenton is form-based code, so they have a little bit more defined height restriction.
Thank you, Commissioner Cruz. Betsy?
I didn't know if the mayor wanted to answer that about the height. I saw that he was.
I was just going to say, yes, we have our zoning, but we also have opportunity. We got a building going up right now that's 137 units of workforce housing. That'll be 12 stories. And, so we already are working through that. And actually, we had to kind of cut it off to come to this meeting because our planning director was going to start talking about some other options in the city that we have now to figure out some of the heights, and there's bonuses that you can get if you do workforce housing, and so the incentives are there. Now it's just figuring out how to make it happen a little bit easier while having that mixed use in our city. You don't want one of one, or you want to have a wide variety. So it is happening.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you, all of you, for what you do. It's been proven that just increasing the supply of housing will, in fact, hopefully lower the cost of housing. But I'm more concerned with homelessness because I volunteer at Turning Points and I see what's going on there, and it's, the range is all over the place. I mean, People are being kicked out of their housing because the rents keep going up, 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 up. So I'm very concerned about homeless, and I don't have to anymore listen to the Council of Government, so I don't. So perhaps you could maybe tell us what some of the solutions are. And again, we really need to work on this. It's going to be so difficult for people to survive this summer being homeless is what I'm concerned about.
Yes, thank you. And that obviously is a question that we get a lot of about homelessness and different things around the wraparound services that are there and that's where the cities and the county are really engaged now. We're going to try to have a meeting within the next month or so together to see what the opportunities are. Obviously, the county has the deeper pockets than the cities do, but we've got to work together to say, okay, is there a location? Because we know as soon as we find locations to try to do something and then do the wraparound services that can be there, it's the NIMBY, the cave, the banana. I heard two terms this weekend, cave and banana, that is the same thing as NIMBY, and that people, not in my backyard. So, you know, we've got to keep working in collaboration with all of us to figure out what's that next step and where. Because we can do some services, and if we'd have transitional housing, but where are they going to go to permanent housing? So that's what we're going to be talking about, I think, a lot of is what we can do in the short term to bring up to the long term. And I know Commissioner Ballard for the board has been kind of going to be the leader on that. So we're excited. We're going to keep pushing with what we can do to see what's the next step quickly, because we can keep pushing it. There's no place to grow in the city. You know, we've got to come up with other areas that can help and then still have the services that they need.
I just want to add
Yeah,
something to that.
please go ahead, and then we'll do one more question.
Yeah, and to add to that complexity, so our average rents are anywhere from $800 to $900, everything included. And so if we raise, and they're all working individuals, and so the question around homelessness, if we raise our rent like $50 a month to these individuals, a lot of them would be homeless. I mean, they're literally that close to the edge. And so it's kind of a scary thought when you think about all the rising costs that are happening, and if you kind of keep up with that trend, you just go up $50, and it really makes a world of a difference for a lot of these families. And so, you know, homelessness is not just a problem for the folks that are homeless, but it's the folks that are in a place that are just on the brink of homelessness as well.
All right, we'll do our last question for the day.
Okay,
Got to get everybody back to work on time.
My name's Emily Lane. I actually work for Habitat, but I live here in the county. And you've touched on transitional housing, which I know we've identified as there is just none, and that's a big thing to worry about. But I'm curious, again, this is as a private citizen, building affordable housing, apartments, what kinds of measures are being put in place to ensure that the people that are managing those units are going to keep them safe, secure, not run down? You know, I know that's something that happens with housing projects over the years. So I'm curious about what kinds of things you guys are looking at to deal with that issue.
Sure, that's a good question. Well, one, we have basic code and inspection, but you know, fortunately, we've been very fortunate, Manatee County, to get some great partners in here from Housing Trust Group and Blue Sky and Lincoln Capital and Dominion. So you know, they're institutional. They have a reputation. They're going to keep these in tip-top shape. We've also been pushing to make these affordable for a longer period of time. We used to have LURA agreements or land use restriction agreements that were like 10 years, 15 years. We've since modified Livable Manatee, and now they go out 30, 50 years. Once you hit 30 years, honestly, just based on age and obsolescence, it's affordable from now on. Once I pass that threshold, it's going to be somewhat affordable. There are some opportunities, though, not to keep circling SB 102, but it's such an important bill. One of the kind of arrows in our quiver we're going to have for the board, and it's something we need to discuss, but clearly I'd be in favor of it, is we'll be able to waive ad valorem taxes for affordable housing, which I've been arguing for and petitioning for in Tallahassee since I got here, because for whatever reason, I was able to waive taxes on a company coming in here and building a facility for economic development, but I wasn't permitted to waive taxes for affordable housing. My argument from day one was, I don't even need to have you call it affordable housing, just affordable housing is economic development, because you're not gonna get companies here unless you have workers here. We can now do that, but a catch to that is we're allowed to inspect these units, and if they get 3 code violations over the course of a 12-month period, they lose that tax incentive entirely. So that's gonna add one more layer of incentive for developers and landlords to make sure they're not becoming slumlords as the process goes on, because what I told everyone in Tallahassee is, developers don't care what their rent is. They care what the cash is in their pocket, what their bottom line is. There's 2 ways of doing that. They can increase their revenue through higher rents, or they can lower their expenses. The single biggest expense is their property tax. Maybe at some point it's gonna be insurance, but right now it's property tax. So if I can get rid of their property tax, that gives them more incentive to keep their rents lower to make it work, because they get the same dollars in their pocket. So that's gonna be a huge incentive we can offer as a county. It's also gonna give us more oversight to ensure those properties don't have mold, don't have leaks in their roof, and are safe places for families that are moving into them in the long term, because that's too much of a risk for them to lose that incentive.
And just one comment to that, and I know my colleague to the left will remember way back when we had a time when with the building was, it's the quality of the product that they put out there. You know, if you put a good product out there, it should last. Unfortunately, I think years ago, they were building them on the cheap, and then it's the quality of the product. So I think that's something we've seen, that, you know, we have some requirements in the construction, and then it's gonna make the product last longer, and then hold them accountable, as Commissioner Cruz said. You know, there's gotta be some accountability to those developers or companies that are running it.
Thank you. I'd like to hear what both of you have to say as well.
Interesting enough, banks got very smart about this particular topic, where they are now requiring replacement reserves. So they actually withdraw those funds out of your operating account every month to put it aside for what they deem as a proper replacement reserve. And then they come out every year, inspect those properties, and then help you to withdraw or mandate you to draw those funds in order to make those replacements. So the banking industry has gotten very smart about helping operators to be a little more honest.
Mr. Quinn, how are you addressing it on the ownership side for the owners?
For maintenance and upkeep?
As far as once the home is turned on to are the Habitat owners required to keep the homes in any certain state of repair in order for Habitat as a whole to continue operating in the model?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they face the same rules and regulations as any homeowner in the city or county does, you know, as far as needing to upkeep their house, just like anyone else does. And the difference is, if they get into trouble with, you know, they lose their job, or they get into, you know, trouble financially, or things are starting to go sideways for them, we service their mortgages, so we're the first call that they get. And then our team works to help them to get back on their feet and to, you know, get resources that they need. And so it's even better because they're not completely on their own. They have us to back them for the life we can kind of consider them part of our family now, you know, when they buy a house from us. But they're their own homeowner, and they have to follow the same codes and, you know, rules that any other homeowner would follow, so.
Perfect. Thank you. I want to thank all 4 of our presenters today for your time and your knowledge and your help on this issue. I hope that all of you have enjoyed this tremendously. I hope that you've walked away learning something today, and that you have a better understanding of the challenge we have in front of us. So thank you all. Thank you for being here today. We wish you a wonderful afternoon, and drive safe back to work, everyone.